Once you find out who your language learners are in your class, it's important to look into where they are in their English language acquisition. One easy place to start for this is looking at their ELPA scores. ELPA stands for English Language Proficiency Assessment, and it is the state assessment that the district gives every year to our English learners to just see their progress in acquiring language. But if you don't understand what these scores mean, the data is not very helpful. So let's talk about the ELPA and the scores, what they actually mean. So like I said, the English Language Proficiency Assessment, also the ELPA, is given every February and March to all of the language learners in our district. And students can earn 3 overall scores. They are either identified as emerging, progressing, or proficient language learners. Now, at a glance, these titles can give you a little bit of information. If a student scores as emerging, you can predict that they're early in their language acquisition. And proficient is the score that we like to see. This is when students are exited from program. If a student receives a score of proficient, it means that they've approached near native English proficiency, and so that's really good. But progressing is this huge umbrella that falls between emerging and proficient, and it doesn't really mean much, or I guess it could mean a lot of different things. So in order to understand what it means if a student is emerging or progressing, you need to dig a little bit deeper. And to do this, you look at what we call domain scores. So the ELPA is broken into 4 subtests. And these are for each of the language domains. You use language to listen, speak, write, and read. And so students are given 4 different tests that score how they can do in these areas in English. Each domain score receives a separate score, ranging from a 1 to a 5. So a student might get a level 1, meaning that they're at the beginning stages. A 2, early intermediate. A 3 is intermediate. A 4 and a 5 stands for early advanced or advanced in that particular language domain. So for example, I possibly could earn a level 4 in listening, but maybe only a 3 or a 2 in reading and writing. So these domain scores are separate. Now, the way that a student receives the overall score of emerging is if their domain scores are all 1s and 2s. So in listening, speaking, reading, and writing, the only thing that they get are 1s and 2s. Now, to receive a score of proficient, students have to receive all 4s and 5s in their language domain scores. So all 4s and 5s, nothing lower. And again, that's when students exit program. Progressing, however, is, like I said, this huge umbrella that is a combination between emerging and proficient. So I might have a student who scores a 3 in listening and only 1s and 2s in speaking, reading, and writing. That student is no longer emerging because they got that 1-3 in listening, and that bumps them up to the progressing category. Alternately, I could have a student who scores all 4s and 5s in everything except writing. In writing, they got a 3. That student is also labeled as progressing. But these 2 students I just described are very, very different. The student who's mostly 1s and 2s with a random 3 and the student with all 4s and 5s on a random 3 need to be approached very differently in their instruction. They have different needs. So in order to truly understand your students and to see where they are at, you have to look beyond just the overall score of emerging, progressing, or proficient, and you need to dive in to look at their domain scores and see where is it that they're struggling and where are their strengths. This information is just the first step in really understanding what your language learners need from you in terms of support for English language acquisition. Let's pause this.